I'm Vidya Gordugula with Cloud Adoption Solutions, and today I'm here to deep dive into Salesforce Campaign Influence and multi-touch attribution for events. I will be taking you through steps to show you how to configure and use Campaign Influence to ensure that the trade show gets credit for pipeline generated even weeks or months later. Trade shows are one of the biggest investments for marketing and sales teams. We capture a lot of leads during the event, but the real challenge is that opportunities are often created weeks or even months later. Because of this delay, it becomes difficult to clearly attribute revenue back to the trade show. And that's why there's always a question on ROI of these kind of events. This is where campaign influence in Salesforce comes in. Campaign influence allows us to attribute a percentage of revenue to campaigns that influenced an opportunity. It basically connects campaigns, contacts, and opportunities, thus giving us visibility into how marketing efforts contribute to pipeline and revenue. In the real world scenarios, customers interact with multiple touch points before converting. Salesforce supports multi-touch attribution models to reflect this journey more accurately. For example, first touch assigns full credit to the initial interaction. Last touch assigns credit to the final interaction, and even distribution spreads the credit across all campaigns. This gives a much more realistic view of how different campaigns contribute to revenue. Now, looking at the configuration overview and how we can configure the campaign influence. To properly use campaign influence, configuration is very critical. So first, we need to enable campaign influence in Salesforce and ensure the marketing user is enabled there. Then we select the attribution models and we configure the association rules. And that's how we finally associate it. I will be taking you into Salesforce to do a quick demo and how we can configure all these things. The first one we will be looking at is campaign influence settings. So I'm in setup and then I just type campaign and I am at campaign influence settings. So we want to make sure that the campaign influence is enabled over here. And then we hit the save button and then let's move on to the campaign influence models, the model settings. So here we can see that we have the first touch model, the last touch, and the default Salesforce model. These models basically help us determine how revenue is distributed across campaigns, whether it's first touch, last touch, or evenly distributed model. These models helps us to rate a campaign and also assign a campaign influence. So the first touch basically focuses on credit, the opportunity revenue on the campaign, which is like a touch point that moves prospects through the awareness stage. Moving on to the last touch focuses on credit, like the opportunity revenue to the campaign that moved prospects through the consideration, the negotiation stage. The even distribution gives equal credit to all the campaigns that a prospect interacted with during the buying cycle. So models are basically like first touch, last touch, even distribution. So first touch, basically going a little bit more detail into first touch assigns 100% of influence and revenue earned to the first campaign a prospect touches. Even if a prospect interacts with other marketing assets or activities, this model attributes all of the influence to the first touch. So this model relies on campaign members' created date and is for account engagement users only. Moving on to the last touch, this model assigns 100% of influence and revenue earned to the last campaign a prospect touches before a deal is closed. No matter what other campaigns the prospect has interacted with, this model attributes all influence to the final touch point. Now, moving on to the even distribution, this model assigns an equal percentage of influence and revenue earned to every campaign a prospect touches. This model relies on the last modified date of the campaign member. And let's move on to looking at the auto association settings, which is right here. So here we define this is the place we actually define the auto association settings or the rules. And here we define the attribution window. This basically determines, this is a very important step here, and this basically determines how far back Salesforce looks into when associating campaigns to opportunities. And this ensures the trade show gets credit even when the pipeline is generated weeks or months later. So we can look at a time-based, time frame-based auto association. So here I have it as 90 days. So based on the time period that has passed between the influential marketing campaign and the one revenue. So campaign influence is really like a subjective topic swayed by a number of factors. Time can be used as one of the determining factors here. So basically, if an opportunity is launched in the time frame of a marketing campaign, we could really assume that campaign influenced the opportunity. For example, a campaign that the contact engaged with 30 days ago or less is influential as opposed to the one they engaged with over a year ago, as we can assume there would be other influences that push the deal over the line. The tricky part comes when we have to set those time periods. How long after a campaign launch can marketing still influence new opportunities? So auto association rules, on top of time-based association, you can filter it to only include campaigns with a certain criteria. For example, you can set the value to be an event or a trade show. So as a result, you can exclude certain campaigns that will not have auto association rules applied as well. Now, for all this to fall into place and for it to be visible on the opportunity, let me take you into an opportunity record here. So I have an opportunity record here, and before that, we do want to make sure that we have the campaign influence on the opportunity page layout. So I'm going to go to opportunity here and make sure that campaign influence is on the related list. Yes, I have the campaign influence right over here. So we are good to go on that. Now let's look at the opportunity record. Here we have this is the opportunity record, and here we have the opportunity name and the stage and amount and even the primary campaign source. So this opportunity was basically created after the event. So basically it represents the delayed pipeline generation. And a very important thing over here to note is the campaign influence related list right over here. So if you look at this, has the campaign name and the influence percentage and also the revenue share. Here we see the campaign influence in action. Salesforce has automatically associated the event campaign to this opportunity and assigned the influence. So the campaign influence that we see in action over here, this is how we directly connect the event to pipeline and revenue. Now, finally, we want to be able to see all these things in our reports. We want all these numbers to be reflected in the numbers to look at the ROI. So Finally, just going on to the reports over here. So using reports like campaigns with influenced opportunities or even like a basic campaign with influences report, we can visualize how much pipeline and revenue was driven by these trade shows, looking at these numbers here. So in summary, campaign influence and multi-touch attribution allows organizations to accurately measure the impact of trade shows. By properly configuring attribution models and auto association rules, we can ensure that events receive credit for pipeline generated weeks or months later. This transforms trade shows from cost centers into measurable revenue drivers. And that is how we bring clarity to trade show ROI using Salesforce. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to share and subscribe. And if you have any Salesforce needs or questions, feel free to reach out to us at Cloud Adoption Solutions. We'd love to connect with you. Thanks so much for watching.